guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JessieKnowTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome to another episode. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with what's going on. What's happening? Ah, Anyways, welcome to another episode. On today's show, we're going to be going through the big moments, the goals, the situations, all that stuff in regards to Arsenal's win against Leeds at the weekend. Tons to talk about in regards to that game and kind of anything else that you guys want to talk about. We're kind of at the point in the season now where uh, we're looking good, and there's some important games coming up. There's some rotational conversations to have, like how do we rotate the squad, things like that. So whatever you guys kind of want to bring up, I think these shows are best when they're a little bit open and you guys get to say what you guys want to say in the chat and I respond to that. So we don't have any sort of like real agenda to it. We're just going to go through the Leeds game and then kind of whatever you guys want to talk about in between. So make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. So what's interesting about, like, let me just say this, like, just to start off, is you guys know me if you guys have been here for a while. If you guys haven't been here for a while, then you're getting to know me. But people that have been here since the beginning, I think you guys get my personality. I'm serious, but I can be very unserious. And at the end of that game, I was like, I can't even celebrate this shit. Like, I really can't. And it was definitely said like that, but obviously, like, I tweeted it and then people thought I was being spoiled and all this kind of stuff, and it went viral. And yeah, Twitter's a strange place because obviously nobody really knows you and they think 140 characters is who you actually are. You guys know that, of course, I'm going to celebrate that win. But like at that moment, more than anything, I needed a drink because there hasn't been an Arsenal game in a long time that made me feel like that, where I was literally sitting there. My heart was beating a mile a minute. I mean, we went through the penalty situation and then to the Gabriel situation in like 30 minutes. So that was a lot. And I really wanted us to win that game. And then I was also disappointed in our performance in general. So, obviously, like, I don't care if other people celebrate, like, I don't give a shit. But I was definitely like, I can't even celebrate this. I just want it to be over, put it away, and never see it again because it was literally going to kill me. But it's so weird. I feel like sometimes people feel like they know you and they just take everything so seriously when clearly it's not. It's just a football game, like, relax. So, yeah, but the game was bad. Like, and that's the reality. That's the reality. Like, the game was not good. And I know that some people are saying that it was resilience. I think it was closer to 70% luck and 30% resilience. And the reason why I say that is because there were too many moments in the game for me that went our way that on another day wouldn't have went our way. I.e., the penalty that was missed and the foul on the Bamford goal at the very beginning of the half. And Leeds just outplayed us. Like, they outplayed us, and the XG was not close. We were nowhere near them. We didn't have the same energy, and so for me, it was more about riding our luck and getting that luck. And I do think you make your own luck, by the way, more than the resilience and all that kind of stuff. Of, like, think about the Leeds game away from, or not Leeds, the Leicester game away from home last season, where we scored 2 goals and then we pretty much sat back and we defended for the rest of the game. For me, that's more resilience than luck. And I really think we rode our luck in this game. And you need luck in this game. You need luck. Like, you need things to go your way. You need the rub of the green. You need that. And I've seen teams that do well have moments like this, have games like this where they weren't great, they were tired, they were off the pace, the other team probably deserved the win, but they still walked away with it. And one of those games that it kind of reminds me of that is when we played against Manchester City, right after Christmas, I think, or right after New Year's. And we were at home, the Emirates was bumping. It was one of the best atmospheres from the outside looking in. watching us. We looked confident. We looked ready to win that game. We had so many chances. We played them off the park. They were rattled, and somehow they walked away from there with 3 points, and we had nothing, and we felt aggrieved by that. The decisions didn't go our way. Gabriel's red card, the penalty, those didn't go our way, and they punished us for the smallest of mistakes, and all of the chances that we had. If you think about Cancelo versus Martinelli and Odegaard, he had a chance as well. Um, they didn't it didn't we didn't get the goals, like, we didn't get them, and so I don't know why my hair is, like, in my eye and it's killing me. So, that happens, and Manchester City were so off the pace in that game. They were tired, you could tell, they were not up for that game, but they still walked away with 3 points, and they went on and won the title, so it's these games happen, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, we didn't deserve shit out of that, but we got it anyway. But I do think that some people feel like if you speak the truth or your truth about it and it's not innately positive, it's like super negative. And it's really not. Like, we really didn't deserve anything from that game, in my opinion. But again, these things happen. And the one thing I will say is that Leeds have to look at themselves in this game as well and say, why didn't we put away our chances? It wasn't just even the penalty that they missed. They had chances in the goal mouth where they just didn't put the ball in the back of the net. And the one chance that we got, we put it away. So they have to look at themselves. But I do think that they'll feel aggrieved by that. And I know exactly how that feels because that's how I felt when we lost to Manchester City. Last season at home, I thought we should have got all 3 points. DJ Oni says throughout the 38 game season, the champion will win about 5 games with luck. Games when they're not their best but still win. It counts. It does count. And again, I'm not saying it doesn't count. I'm just saying that there's nothing wrong with saying that we didn't deserve anything out of that game and we were horrendous. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that they don't count. And that means that all of our games before that were a farce and all this kind of stuff. And I do think we have a tendency to go overboard. And when we're talking about one game, it's okay to say that players did not play well. It's okay to say that players were, didn't do what they were supposed to do. It's okay to say that Arteta got it wrong and it not mean that you hold some sort of level of like resentment or you don't back the team or support them. Strange. Ash says Ben White looked cooked when he came off. Yeah, so ultimately, like, I think we can all probably look at that game and look at the players and probably come to the conclusion that the players were tired. I do think that they could have still played better, just in general. I thought that we just did not handle the pressure well in terms of what Leeds were throwing at us. And when we could have been a little bit cleaner, a little bit and played simpler, we tried to do too much when our legs were not in a position to play that way. But I could see that some players were like really had some heavy legs. And I think Ben White was definitely somebody that I look at his performance and I say, yeah, that wasn't Ben that we know from the season. It was his first probably performance this season, and it's come off of the back of him playing some minutes in Europe as well. So, because he started, I think, against Bodo Glimt, and so he's probably somebody that's like, okay, when am I going to get a rest? Like, I might need one, and I'm not sure when he's going to get that. I thought Jesus looked off as well, like, and we can't underestimate what a head injury can do to somebody. We don't know what he's dealing with. And I think also he's kind of at his physical limit as well. Like, I don't know when's the last time Gabriel Jesus has played this many games, 90 minutes in a row at Manchester City. It wasn't very often that he played multiple games in a row, 90 minutes, the way that he's been playing. So he's probably playing on the edge of his fitness levels at the moment too. So that with the concussion, you can kind of give him some leeway on that, but beyond that, I just don't think we were very good and Leeds were very good. And we got away with one. DJ Oni says we played 4 difficult games in a short period coming into the game and it showed. Leeds had a week to prepare and we only had a training session. Exactly. We know what that feels like when we prepared all week. We didn't have European games and we were ready to play whatever team had already played in Europe. Like we know what that's like and being on the other end. Leeds were definitely ready for that game, and I think they understood that we were gonna be tired. Like, they understood that we were gonna be coming back from a difficult away fixture, in Europe, and we had just played those 2 really difficult games at home as well, and they tried to take advantage of it, and I think they only really have, like, one, I think, situation that they can look at where they can say they probably should have got the call should have went their way, but they really need to look in the mirror as well because they had so many chances they didn't put them away. The Mad Hatter says, "I'm being super critical, but I can't help it." Saturdays equals youth says, "Leeds feel like the new Wolves." Um, Potentially, but I also think that some of the Wolves situation came from them just not respecting us as at all. Like, they acted like we didn't deserve to win that game at all. They gave us, like, no respect whatsoever, and they acted as though, like, the game that we played away from home to them, Gabriel scored the goal and we had a red card and we still beat them. So whose fault is that? I do think Jesse Marsch had a lot of respect for Arsenal. And so I don't really see them as the same as Wolves because Wolves also sat there and said that we shouldn't have celebrated. And I think that's a lot of where that came from. JJ Adams says, Jess, if you actually think about every Big Six team has had luck against the smaller teams this season, United versus Southampton, City versus Newcastle, Spurs versus Brighton, but only Arsenal can't have the luck. Luck is a big part of the game, and people don't want to look at it. Of course, talent, tactics, all those things, fitness, all that kind of stuff comes into, the game. Like, it's really important, but luck is definitely there as well, and you make your own luck. Um, like, I would say that, like, a lucky goal would have been Fulham, the goal that they scored against us. Where they put a little bit of pressure on Saka. Saka hoofs that ball across our own goal, and then Gabriel tries to control it. He kind of miscontrols it and holds on to it too long, gets stuck underneath his foot. Mitrovic gambles on it and kicks it in the back of the net. Now, people will say, well, Arsenal made a mistake, so it's lucky. But if they don't press us and Mitrovic doesn't gamble, they don't get the goal. And so you make your own luck. And not to mention the goal that we scored against Leeds, they made a mistake and we took advantage of it. And it was a little bit lucky that, like, Rodrigo did a madness and just kicked the ball so wildly across the pitch, but we were ready for it and we punished them. So the game is really, it is about luck sometimes, and sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't. So there you go. Seawalder says, entering some bad form and still picking up wins is no bad thing. The signs of champions, some say. Yeah, exactly. Like, we still have to find a way to win when you play like crap. Like, it's not like Man City plays good in every single game that they play. Even if you go back to the Invincibles, we know damn well if you watch the Invincibles that there were some games where we were not good. We were not good, but you still got through it, and that's just the reality, and this is the first and only game, but I mean, besides Bodo Glimt, but the first game in the Premier League where I thought we played way under our levels, and so to still to come away with a win, I think is positive. Let's see, Big White Clock says, "The harder we work, the luckier we get." Exactly. Um, so yeah, that's just, like, the general opening because you guys, like, I like how active you guys are. There's 123 of you guys in here. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's go through some, like, individual performances, like, and then we can talk about the big moments as well. So you guys can let me know. We'll do best performers and worst performers. We'll do it in that order. So you guys can get in the chat and let me know who you guys thought performed the best. There's some obvious ones, and this will be the quickest section probably. So you guys can put in the chat who you guys think performed well, and I'll let you guys know who I thought performed well. Let's see. Billy Boy says that's what's being clinical. That's what being clinical. Sniff out them openings, however small they are. Spurs are great at this to their credit, and they are level with City. And look at the differences with their performances. That's a really, really good point. Crispy Rice says we got a little lucky with their disallowed goal. Sure, it was a foul, but 9 times out of 10, VAR won't intervene. That's the one where I really think that if I was a Leeds fan, I'd be looking at it like, okay, that definitely went against us, but they got the penalty that they deserved and missed it. And Gabriel's red card and penalty, that's never a red card and a penalty. Like, I do think that Gabriel gave the referee a decision to make, and had he had not done all that, it would have just went out and we would have just moved on from it. But other than that, they didn't really deserve much more. They fouled us like 23 times in the first half. Like, they were very aggressive, and I thought for the most part the game was called pretty well. But yeah, that goal at the very beginning of the second half, if that was me, I'd be looking at it like, yeah, that's not a foul. Let's see what you guys are saying. Tony says best Ramsdale and Gabriel. Bro Pro says Ramsdale's the best performer, worst probably Saliba with the mistake. Ash says Martinelli was mid-man. Every game people said he plays well. Ransfee says, I think Partey did well defensively. He is always good. Arsenal Granny says Shaka. John P says Ben White looked ill when he went off. Maybe the traveling. Keenan says Saka, Partey, Martinelli, Ramsdale all played well. The Mad Hatter says Ramsdale, Saka, and Odegaard first half. A lot of this is a tale of two halves as well, because there's some players that people are saying played poorly, but they really played well in that first half, and it's really unfortunate that they couldn't continue that on for 90 minutes. Let's see. Crispy Rice says Saliba was good. The mistake was a fluke. Aha says Gabriel was immense yesterday, man of the match in my opinion, but he was being brain dead dead for the red. Yes, it was a foul, but you shouldn't have actually been. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. So let's talk about it. So the first player that I'm going to mention is Bukayo Saka. I do think that, yeah, like in the second half he was less influential, but Arsenal in an attacking sense was non-existent in the second half. But in the first half, he puts away that one chance, and I thought that his overall gameplay was quite good in that first half. And that's his third game-winning goal in 3 matches or something like that. And he has the end product, it's there. The finish was there, right-footed, very if anybody else did that, people would be like, "Oh my gosh," but because it's Saka, like, nobody's talking about it, that finish was brilliant. And I think Saka is showing people that I mean, there was a lot of hoopla about, like, how he was playing at the beginning of the season, but now he's getting going and he's scoring goals and he's looking like that guy, and I love that for Saka. Like, it's unfortunate that we were so bad in the second half, but I thought in the first half he was quite good and very dangerous and strike, kinda he didn't struggle that much, but I did think that Saka was kinda getting the better of him. Like, he wasn't getting skinned, if that makes sense. Um, Saka so far, 4 goals and 4 assists in the Premier League and 1 goal in the Europa League. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's really good. If he keeps this up, um, I'm hoping that he can get to 15 goals. That's my hope for him. So I thought Saka had a good goal, a good day out yesterday, despite the fact that we were so dead in the second half. Let's see. Tony says Saka's goal, tight angle, weak foot, near post, top bins, FU goal, literally my favorite type of goal. Ash says Saka had 2-3 average games and the fan base were calling for him to be dropped. Lol. Bro Pro says Saka can cook anyone casually. John P says Salah's goal was better. Well, of course Salah's goal was better, but I'm talking about like in terms of this game when we're talking about it, nobody was talking about it. And that our game happened and that goal happened way before Salah even played. So I get what you're trying to say, but I'm saying in regards to like just saying Saka's goal was good. I mean, I heard people talking about Mount's goals and they weren't better than Salah's. Um, the Matt Hatter says Saka is growing fast. He's getting better by the day, I think. Steve says goal of the weekend by Saka. We held on, got away with it, and got the bonus of City loss. Good day for the Gunners. DJ Oni says Saka is my 5-year-old's favorite player. I think he's a lot of people's favorite player. He's definitely the face of Arsenal. I think he's even going. He went with Beth Mead and Miedema. I think they were the 2 that were nominated for the Ballon d'Or. He went with Edu to represent Arsenal. Like, he's literally the face of Arsenal. Like, a lot of people, I think, would probably pick Bukayo Saka as their favorite player right now. So yeah, I think Saka definitely deserved a shout. I also think I also think Gabriel was really, really good in that game. And the thing is he's good in like every single game. That's kind of like the reality about Gabriel is that um, he gets a lot of shit, and I know it's because he has these moments of madness, and I do think, like, now we're getting into the territory that anytime something happens on his side, or, he touches the ball or something, like, it's his fault and he made another blunder or whatever, but I think we really underestimate the job that Gabriel has to do versus the job that Saliba has to do. Not only is Gabrielle very influential in the way that we progress the ball and how we start attacks from the midfield, but he's also still our best defender. Like he just is. Saliba is probably better on the ball, more smooth, whatever. But Gabrielle still does so much for us in possession. And then when he's tasked to do the one-on-one defending, to get dirty, to, get into the box and make the blocks and stuff like that, he's the guy that's putting his body on the line. He's the guy that's fighting and going to war. And I think you need those types of players. And I thought he was immense. I watched his compilation. His statistics were so good. He made so many of um the teams of the week because of his defensive display yesterday. And I know that he had the mind whatever fog that he had at the end of the game where he got silly and let Bamford kind of bait him into kicking out a little bit, and we could have been severely punished for it, and that was like in the 90 somethingth minute. But from minute 1 to minute 90, that guy was immense. And I think most games he is really good. Most games, I think he is really good. It's just the Arsenal fan base is so in love with Saliba, and there's nothing wrong with Saliba. I love Saliba as well. But we got Gabriel for 27 million. He came to us at like 22. He was very raw, had to play, he played with David Luiz and stuff like that. He had to play with the bad teams. Like he didn't get to play with the now calm Arsenal. He had to come in when things were messed up. And he's grown so much. Like, I wish we could see old videos of Gabriel from, like, his first season. I'm gonna look it up because I think if you watch that and then you watch the player that you see today, regardless of how good Saliba is, you have to admit that Gabriel is a freaking good defender. He may not be world class, whatever, but the guy is freaking good, okay? And so I thought he deserved a shout because I think he's mostly always good, but because he makes the mistake, or has the mind mist or whatever, that is conflated with his talent. And there's nothing wrong with the talent. It's just he needs to grow up in those moments. And for me, if Xhaka can do it, why can't Gabrielle? We know Xhaka had that same thing as Gabrielle. They have that thing. And Xhaka, it took him like 7 years to get rid of it. Let's keep it real. But Gabriel, he might be able to take that out of his game quicker than Xhaka has. So I do think it's possible for him to get better at making sure that he doesn't get swept up in the emotion of games and potentially losing us the game and all of his hard work going to waste. I love Gabriel. I'll always back him. I still think I want him to have moments where he doesn't have to play every single game. He literally plays every single game for us, but the guy's just effing good. Anton Dunn says Gabriel is okay. He fills me with worry most times. Yeah, I mean he doesn't really fill me with worry. Not really. I think on the ball, I feel pretty comfortable with him on the ball. Um, I think he's criminally underrated on the ball in terms of what we do and build up and stuff like that. I know what moments make my heart beat faster, and it's the moments where I see him running up to the ref or yelling at people. That's what worries me, but not when he's playing, because he's so good. Andrew says, "Love you, Jess, but it's clear Gabriel needs a lecture on mental discipline and focus. Stop making excuses for him. Ben White, Tierney, or Odegaard, etc., don't have this issue." Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm not really making excuses for him, though. I said that he needs to iron that out of his game, but I will not conflate those moments, which they are moments. They're not the majority of what he does. He doesn't do that more than he plays well. He plays well more than he makes mistakes. And I said he needs to iron it out, but I'm not gonna conflate his talent and act like I haven't seen an improvement in a really good player just because I want him to iron out those moments. So it's not about making mistakes. Every player has different tendencies and a different attitude and emotional response to things. And so using Ben White and Tierney and Odegaard as some sort of like pinnacle of how Gabrielle should be, well, sometimes I freaking wish that Odegaard would be more intense like Gabrielle, because intensity is important in this game as well. And we've had these dynamics before. Keown and Adams, both players immense, both players so good, but Keown had that emotional aspect part of his game, and you do need to iron it out. You can't let it derail you. But it's not really about making excuses. It's just I'm not going to pretend like Gabrielle is crap because he's making these mistakes. And that's just what we do. As a fan base, we do that. We decide a player is crap because he makes mistakes. And that's just not what I'm going to do. I'm not really making excuses, you know, but equally, I do think he's underrated. I do think the fan base doesn't they don't they don't love him the same as they love other players. Devish says this is part of Gabriel's performance. He's going to make a mistake, but hope his mistake doesn't cost us the game. Blaze says, I don't get why Arsenal fans make stuff Gabriel versus Saliba. We can praise Gabriel without digging out Saliba. Same thing Arsenal fans did with Tierney versus Zinchenko. Exactly. And again, I thought Saliba was really, really good in that first half. I think people have decided Saliba played poorly because of the handball. I need to rewatch it, but I don't believe that. I don't remember Saliba being catastrophic. I remember him making one bad pass. I do remember that. And then the handball, that was unfortunate. His hand wasn't even up here or anything like that. It was down here. It was unfortunate. Those things happen. And so I'm trying to figure out where Saliba had this catastrophic performance as well. I think we take moments and we decide that's who the player is based on that moment. And I don't really believe that that's true. These are still two young players. So Saliba is obviously much younger than, not much, but he's younger than Gabrielle. But these players are nowhere near their prime, and so I want to give them more time, before I just throw them away or start saying that this is the person that they are and they're going to be this mistake ridden player. I'm not there yet. I'm just not there yet. I'm definitely not there with Gabrielle at all. Um, Big White Clock says the important thing is that we have the best possible team. Doesn't matter if that doesn't include the players we personally like the most. Fair enough. Let's see. The Mad Hatter says Saliba's cut in was awful. Cut in was awful. Cut in was awful. Yeah, he did have that one mistake where he tried to cut in and then they were in on goal. I do remember that. But again, I'm not sure that that makes me feel like his overall performance was super poor. Because I remember the whole first half, he was really, really good, and the defense as a whole had a lot of work to do. So, yeah. Ash says Saliba was immense in the first half. He went to shit in the second. Um, let's see. Ray Ray says you can be emotional, but you need to focus that energy and be smart when playing the wind up game. There should be coaching in this, and they probably are coaching him. There's just going to be, I think some players just have this in them. And so we'll see if Gabrielle can iron it out. But I do believe if Xhaka can iron it out, that Gabrielle can as well. There's 160 of you guys in here. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Yo-Yo says Arsenal have no perfect players. People need to support the side, which is relatively new and young. Player FC is so boring. It is boring. And players aren't perfect. And I don't think we need two Salibas in a team in the back line. I think the yin and yang of Gabriel and Saliba really works. I think if you put two really calm people back there, you won't have that fighter. And I do think Gabriel brings a little bit of bite to that back line that we need. And so, yeah, I'm willing to go to bat for Gabriel. He just played so well yesterday, and I think most games he plays well. He just needs to iron out the silliness. Because I was angry, after he did the kick out thing. Um, but I think he played really well. Crispy Rice says, when I think about it, I don't mind Saliba making a mistake here and there. It keeps the big dogs at bay when it comes to the transfers. Fair enough. Lynn says, every player has a bad game, but yesterday, none of our players were on their game yesterday. I feel that the team still were feeling the after effects of Thursday's game on the plastic pitch. I think just in general, having two highly emotive games that you played really well and you kind of played you played yourself into the ground in both of those games, then to go to the Arctic Circle and play, like you said, on the plastic pitch and then come back after one training session and to play a difficult away game is a lot. And we don't have enough players to really fully rotate the way that we want to. And so the performance just wasn't there. And I'm sure that Arteta will still give them notes and let them know where they were good and where they weren't good and things like that. But I do think it's important to frame it, especially from Arteta's perspective, to frame it as resilience and not as um, the players not being good enough or whatever, just to keep the momentum going. DJ Oni says, when we control games, Saliba is great. When play games like we did yesterday, you definitely need a Gabriel. Yeah, I think that's pretty on point. Maggie says, how long has it been since we've had CBs who scare attackers? Gabriel scares attackers. Yeah, and I think, of course, like there's parts of Gabriel's game, like when they hit it over the top in between him and the fullback, and he's facing his goal, making the decision. If you can't get your foot onto it, don't just swipe at it because if you nick it, then the players that are offside are no longer offside because then it becomes second phase. And there's a lot of those moments against Liverpool. And so his weakness is definitely when he's going back towards his goal and making a decision when the ball is bouncing or it's coming through the air over his head this way. Saliba, I think with him, it's just not getting casual and cavalier on the ball. I think that's a key for him because he's so good on the ball that you don't want him to get that Virgil van Dijk disease. And there was one point where people were talking about how Van Dijk was amazing, and he went through a couple of games where he was so cavalier on the ball that people were just taking it off of him. He has to always be alert. And so hopefully what happened against Leeds will reset him so that he doesn't fall victim of like, I'm so good, I can be so casual. They both have their own little pros and cons, but together I think they make such a good partnership. So that's kind of my thing with both of those two. I think they're both so good. Michael says, let's not turn players into player FC like Man United fan base. Once upon a time, Arsenal fans were talking about Gabriel being our new captain. Yeah, yeah. Zach 10 says, Saliba, great at home and against big teams. Gabriel, great away against small teams. Great at home and against big teams. Gabriel, great away against small teams. I have to think about that. That sounds like when I'm saying it, it sounds right. But yeah, I want to think about that. 4737 Carlin says 2 games against piss poor sides and you're blaming a plastic pitch and jet lag from a 3-hour flight. Excuses FC. Oh, so fatigue and fitness and those things don't affect players at all, you know? I mean, playing 3 well, no, they played the 2 really difficult, games against top 4 sides, like, Liverpool is still a really, really good side, um, and also Spurs, one right after another with an European game in between, I think, um, and no, we didn't have great performances, but the idea that those things shouldn't affect players and that they should play amazingly every single game and we shouldn't, you know, take that into account because it's making excuses is kind of silly, especially when we won the games. I can understand if we lost to Bodo Glimt and then we turned around and lost to Leeds, but we still won those games. And so, yeah, I think a little bit of perspective is important. It's not, you can't remove context because you want to be mad about the way that the team performed. And I think the fan base, not all of you guys, but there is a sense of, I want to remove context from any situation so that I can justify being upset about something. What is it? Are you Arteta out? What players do you hate? What is it? Because it feels agenda driven to act like playing that many games and light rotation, and traveling would not hurt the team's performance, even if the teams that they're playing against are not great. And I do think you're doing a disservice to Bodo Glimt and Leeds, who I think on the day both played us really well and did not just like sit down and do nothing. And Leeds will spin any team the way that they press. So, yeah, not really buying it. I guess it would be. I would love to know, what is it? Is it Arteta out? Is it you don't like some players on the team? What is it? Because if you can't admit that the team might have been feeling fatigue, from playing those games, then, you know, I don't know what to tell you. That doesn't mean that people think that those performances are okay. Come on now. Ray Ray says, "Who do we need to buy in January? An astronaut specialist, astroturf specialist." No. So now the last player that I want to speak on is somebody that I do feel like deserves probably some apologies. Um, Hold on real quick, you guys. Um, and that's Ramsdale. I did see that people were saying that he hasn't been good saving shots this season, and I disagree. I disagree. I don't think that he's been poor saving shots this season. I think he hasn't faced enough shots this season. And some of the chances that we gave away were just not, he couldn't save them. The only goal that I really look at that I'm like, that was 100% on him was probably the Madison goal against Leicester. Well, Leicester, it was obviously Leicester at home, but it was the Madison goal. I thought he was weak at his near post. But against Spurs, he made a really big save off of their free kick. Against Liverpool, he made some really big saves as well, and he saved us yesterday. Now, the thing that I like about this season is that we're not talking about Ramsdale every single game. Last season, we spoke a lot about Ramsdale because we weren't as good and we were getting peppered in more games than we probably wanted to. But this is how a good keeper is supposed to be. A keeper for a top four team needs to be able to be in the game and keep us in the game when we're not really playing or when we're not getting peppered, but in games where we are, they can show up as well. And I think Ramsdale has been excellent in the last 3 games, and, I'm loving it because he's obviously playing with some level of injury as well. You can tell that something is not right with his hip. He's still playing, he's still doing his best, and yeah, I'm loving what Ramsdale is bringing. I think he's growing this season, and I love that because some people were really questioning him towards the back end of last season, which I understand when a player is not playing well, it's normal to question it and talk about it and have open conversations about how we feel about the player. But for me, it's when a player shows really good form and then goes through a dip, I don't think we should just act like, they were never good because they're going through poor form. And I do think some people took advantage of the bad form at the end of last season because they felt embarrassed about going so far in on him at the beginning of last season when we bought him. And but he was never a bad keeper. He just needed to grow a little bit. He's only 24 years old. He's so young for a goalkeeper, and so loving Ramsdale, loving his energy, and I think he is getting better. Let's see. Crispy Rice says it looked like he had a penalty covered if Bamford would have hit the inside post. I think he caused the miss. I think he did as well. I think like you think he had it covered. And yeah, Ramsdale he's had some really good games. He's saved us quite a bit of times, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think when you look at goalkeepers like Allison in particular, even Kepa against Aston Villa, good goalkeepers do have to come in and save you sometimes. That's why they're there, and so there's nothing wrong with that. As long as they're not saving you every single game, you're fine. Let's see. Ray Ray says Ramsdale is fine and progressing. We need him to reach Allison levels, partnerships with our forwards. Did you see Salah's goal where he's starting to running before Allison even caught the ball? Yeah, no, I hear that. I do think that we haven't done that as much this season as we did kind of when we started to play well last season. That was a huge feature of how we were playing against Liverpool and Man City in particular, where he was hitting it and Martinelli was it was right on his toe, and they brought it down. And so that would be something that I would like to see us, implement into our game. Um, yeah, a little bit more the long passes into the space and seeing if our forwards can put pressure on the defenders. I don't think we do enough long ball, um, creating uncertainty behind the center backs. I don't think we do enough of that. I think we could have used some of that yesterday. I think regardless, like, as much as they were pressing us, we just never got to the point where we just decided to hit it long into the channels to Saka, Gabriel, Martinelli, and Jesus. And it would be nice if we had used that a little bit more. I don't know why we insisted on playing out yesterday, but yeah, he does need he will eventually, I think, get to a really high level. Yo-Yo says the keeper and backline earned that clean sheet. The rest of the side should have been made to walk back home. Yeah, and I think it's been a while since we've seen that level of defensive performance from Arsenal. We know that they had it last season when it was Tomiyasu, White, Gabriel, Ramsdale, and Tierney. They were doing that on a daily basis because we couldn't progress through the thirds. We could not pass the ball. And this reminds me a little bit of the performance that we had against Brighton away from home, where they were absolutely battering us. They were pressing us to death, and every single time the ball got to Odegaard or ESR or whoever, they just couldn't hold on to it, and it just kept coming back down our throat. It was, White and Gabriel and Ramsdale and Tierney and Tamiyasu that kept us in that game. And so we know that they can do it. They have that love for defending, the back line does. And they had one of those performances. You need a couple of those throughout the season. And so, yeah, I do think as a whole, the defense did a good job. Let's see. Ray says, yeah, some superb kicking from Ramsdale. On balance, I would accept some eccentricity for some assists. Um, let's see. T Cal says, only worry is there's still not enough depth to go all the way. Need January signings. Richie Rabbit says, just a reminder that we can block annoying posters by clicking I guess you guys mean block. Amira says, our goalkeepers have saved our asses this week, both men and women's team. You are right. And so, yeah, just wanted to touch on those really good performances. Obviously, there wasn't a lot of really good ones. Like, I thought Saliba was really good in the first half. I thought Thomas Partey was pretty good in the first half, as well as Odegaard, but they fell away too much in the second half for me to really say that they had amazing games. And in terms of players that struggled, you guys can get in the chat and let me know who you guys think struggled. But the player that I'll start off with is Tomiyasu. I had questions around whether or not Tomiyasu should have started in this game. And you guys know, if you guys have been here, um, newsflash, I love Kieran Tierney. I love Kieran Tierney. That's my guy. He's one of my favorite players and always has been. Since he's been here, literally from the first moment I saw him play, I was like, he's one of my favorites. I love him. Mostly because at that time, like, there was nobody good. Like, our team was shit and he was amazing, but I digress. And I thought this game would have been just fine to bring Tierney back in. I get that the team that beat Liverpool, how could you break that team apart because they deserved to continue to start off of that because they won such a big game. But what I'll say about that is you said Arteta said it was a tactical decision, and there was nobody on Leeds that we needed to have an inverted left back for. We didn't, or we needed Tomiyasu to be able to block them from coming inside. We didn't need that tactical switch. We didn't need that for that game. And we were going to be trying to get into use our possession to pass through the thirds. And I thought Tomiyasu's his limitation in terms of being two-footed was shown because when he has some time and space, of course he can do it. And defensively, he can defend on both feet. Like, he's good going on either direction. But when it came down to it, I thought the clip balls down the line weren't really coming off because he didn't really have that with his left foot. And they knew he was going to cut back in on his right. And they started to really press him there. And he never really went to the line the way that a natural left-footed left back would have. And so he really struggled. And I don't think it's by like any fault of his own. I just think he's a right back and it's a specific tactical switch that you want to do against some of the best right wingers that want to cut in on their left. So, your Salahs, your Sons, if Son, if not even Son, your maybe Kulusevski. You want to do Kulusevski, Salah, maybe Anthony, maybe players that are going to cut in on that left. They're going to cut in on that left and try to get to the interior. But in a game like that, you could have just played Tierney, and I found myself wanting Tierney to come on quite early on because I was like, it's just not working. And so, love Tomiyasu, wasn't his best game. Thought, you know, he's a right back, and that's where he really plays best, obviously. And so, we only really need to see that in specific situations. We saw the limitations of it. But I thought Tomiyasu really struggled. That switch didn't make sense. And I do understand, I get that you can't break up the team that beat Liverpool, but, you know, it is what it is. Ray Ray says, but only because Leeds press like crazy. Cliche. Credit has to go to Leeds for the game plan and execution. Ash says Leeds press was so brazy. Michael says, I feel like Arteta saw PSV as a bigger challenge than Leeds and felt like resting Tierney for PSV was worth playing Tomiyasu there for a bit. I could be wrong though. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see if what if Zinchenko's back? Then what happens? Tierney, I feel like deserves some good minutes soon. And so, because even playing inverted on that side, I know that Tierney is not Zinchenko, but I do think he does a better job inverting and coming central into midfield and finding that ball out to Martinelli. Where I thought Tomiyasu was a little bit clunky and a little bit scary because of how much they were pressing him. So yeah. Um, let's see. The Mad Hatter says Tommy had a hard time. He really did. And so again, love him, but he had a poor game. Big White Clock says Leeds were immense best opponents all season. Yeah. The Mad Hatter says he wasn't quick with his decisions. It just looked like he wasn't ready to be in a situation where he was going to be pressed like that. And because he wanted to switch back onto his right foot, they knew he was gonna try to switch back onto his right foot, and they just were on him. And all week, they probably had a plan for every single one of our left backs. They probably were like, if Tomiyasu plays, press him on his right, or try to, he's gonna come on his right, so press him there. If it's Tierney, try to press him on his left. If it's Zinchenko, hit it in behind him, whatever. So I'm sure they were just ready for all the situations, but it just didn't work out for Tommy. Andre says, agreed about not using Tomiyasu and Tierney correctly. Feel like we need another CB for cover in the winter window. It'll be interesting to see what we do in January. You guys know my thoughts. I don't think that we're going to see 2 or 3 players come in. I think it's going to be one player, to be honest. And so if I had to choose, I would just leave the back line. I just leave it the way it is. I don't think we need to use the winter window because Tomiyasu can play left-sided center back for me, and we have enough fullbacks, really, in my opinion. Like, if Ben White is not there, you can play Tomiyasu there. If Zinchenko's not there, you play Tierney. If Tierney's not there, you play Tommy. Tommy can play for Gabriel. I think there's enough options there. Cedric's still alive, so there's options there. If we're only going to get one player, which I think we will, I think goals are going to be really important. And we'll get on to Gabriel Jesus in a second, but I think we would be in a good position if we brought in somebody else that could score goals as well. So I wouldn't waste the money on a CB, but I get what you're saying. Probably a summer thing to look at, Yule says, I don't think Tierney is great under pressure. He was really sloppy in the game against Bodo last Thursday, but everybody was. To me, everybody was so sloppy against Bodo Glimt that I don't know if I can take anything from that game and say this is this player, because everybody was not good on the ball and really struggled under the pressure. I thought the last game that Tierney looked really good in, I forget what game it was. Was it Bodo Glimt at home? Maybe. And when he came off of the bench, I think against Spurs, he was quite good too. And so, no, Tierney is not press resistant. Not many players are. But I think just having the ability to go onto the left so that Martinelli could get more service would have been better, because the only way that Martinelli could get the ball was by coming central when Tomiyasu cut in on his right, and all the traffic was through the middle, so Martinelli didn't really have that avenue in behind. And we know Tierney, he will smack it in behind the center backs on that left hand side for players to run, and I just didn't think we had that out ball. But I get what you guys are saying. I don't think Tierney is like the best on the ball, but even when he got out there, I thought one thing that he did that Tomiyasu couldn't do was he just tried to dribble past his defender and tried to get up the pitch, and he got us way up the pitch because he was willing to push it past them and run. And I thought that was good for us because we needed to relieve some pressure. Ash says Zinchenko and Partey are most press resistant players at their best. I would say that that's probably true. Jacobson says Tierney should have played. He's been very good recently, but he looks uncomfortable in ball control situations. I think he doesn't look like Zinchenko. That's my take on it. I think our level to which we think, like, our technical Zinchenko has lifted the technical ability up to a place where anybody that's not him looks pedestrian on the ball. But when I watch Tierney, I actually think he's getting better on the ball, but he'll never look like Zinchenko, because remember, Zinchenko is basically a number 10 playing as a left back. So Tierney is never going to look like that. So I think he doesn't look like Zinchenko. Big White Clock says, so everybody was bad yesterday, but Tommy was poor. Be fair. No, I thought everybody was bad against Bodo Glimt. I think everybody was bad against Bodo Glimt. So that's where I didn't take anything from that game in terms of who I thought was good and who was bad or anything like that. Everybody was bad against Bodo Glimt. Yesterday, everybody was not that poor. Like, there was varying degrees of poorness. And I thought Tomiyasu early on gave Leeds a lot of encouragement by not being secure on the ball. And once they knew that they could get to him, they just kind of continued to press him. So, yeah, it wasn't everybody was bad on yesterday. It was everybody was bad against Bodo Glimt, just to be clear on that. So, yeah, I thought Tomiyasu really struggled, and I thought Ben White really struggled too, but he looked more unable to run than just getting pressed off the ball, I think is a different issue. I wonder if he's carrying an injury or if he was ill, so we'll learn about that, sooner rather than later. And last but not least, Jesus. I thought, now the funny thing about Jesus is that if he had scored that goal, I think we'd be thinking a lot differently about his performance, because there was one move that we had where the referee made a mistake. It was such a good flowing move in the first half, and Martinelli was free in the box after that, and Jesus had been fouled in the build-up, and he called it back. Jesus was good in that move. He should have finished that chance that he had. I don't know how he missed it. And he had some good touches, but I thought he tried too hard in some instances, and I thought him and Odegaard, they gave Leeds encouragement by wanting to take the next touch, by wanting to dribble the next man, by wanting to do something too special, and by not keeping it simple. Every time a Leeds player won the ball, the stadium got louder and louder and louder and louder, and those players got more and more and more confident. And I think that's where, when Odegaard and Jesus had good touches, they also did us a disservice by wanting to take the next touch and the next touch, and they didn't keep it simple. So Jesus, I thought he did a lot of good defensive work, but he was off it. He was just off it. He wasn't a bundle of energy yesterday. He was just kind of, I won't say going through the motions, but he definitely wasn't up to the levels. And the worst Jesus plays, the games that he plays the worst, are the ones that he comes the deepest. And kind of similar to Lacazette, I think, where when you see Jesus standing next to Ben White, you see Jesus back behind Thomas Partey, it's a bad day for Jesus. He needs to be further up. And so it just wasn't a good day at the office for him. I want to believe that it was because of, what was going on with his head in the Liverpool match, and it wasn't just like we're seeing the beginning of the end or anything. I don't think that, but you know what I mean? But yeah, Jesus really struggled. He really struggled. And so Hopefully, he'll be looking to make it right because he may play against PSV. PSV at home is a big game because I think if we win it, we're pretty much like on to the next round or whatever. I have to look at it again. You guys can correct me in the chat if you know exactly what it means if we beat PSV at home. So we're gonna have to play another strong lineup, and maybe we want to play a really strong lineup and make sure we win that game, and then go ahead and rotate against Southampton. But yeah, Jesus was not great. He wasn't great. I was cussing him. I'm not gonna lie. Saksham says, seeing Nketiah on the bench, I get depressed. Um, I would like to see Nketiah play more Premier League minutes just so we know that we have somebody there that is competent. I think what it comes down to for Nketiah is that, like, I know he can score goals in the Premier League, but because we haven't really seen it this season, it's like I'm forgetting. And so I don't think it would have hurt him to play against Leeds. I think if he had played against Leeds, we probably would have gotten the same result or better, to be honest, because of Jesus wasn't very good. And so now when we play against PSV, where we're going to need to play a pretty strong lineup, do you play Jesus again for a significant amount of minutes, or do you play Nketiah? Who knows? Um, let's see. Let's see. Big White Clock says if we beat PSV at home, we only need to draw away there or beat Zurich at home to top the group. Exactly. So it's gonna be important for some of these players to turn around and play another difficult match. I mean, it's at home, which is great. You know, at home, it's great. We're around our people, but PSV has been really good, as well. I mean, we played rotated squads, so I think if we would have played our best possible lineups every single game, we would have blown past Zurich and stuff like that. But nevertheless, like, I look at somebody like Ben White, and I'm like, "Can he play another game on Thursday? Can he?" He didn't look right. What do you do about Jesus? I'm not sure, but I think everybody else looks fine. I think everybody else will be able to get back up to scratch. So we'll see what happens with that. And I mean, can we beat PSV at home with Nketiah up front? Yeah, probably. As long as everybody else is pretty much the same. So yeah, we'll see. Let's see. Ray says, Jess, what can we do if all of our opponents play like Leeds against us? How do we keep possession better or increase our goal threat? Well, I just think that we just weren't up to scratch in this game. I don't think that their game plan was so good. I think we were really poor. Because even though they were pressing us in the first half, we cut through them. Remember the first half happened, and in the first half it was pretty even though we still weren't at our shining best. Like, we cut through them quite a few times with very fast combinations, getting it out wide to the wingers, and we just needed to do more of that. In the second half, I think we just ran out of steam. So even if we get pressed, I think what it really comes down to is just not taking that extra touch. I found Odegaard and Jesus to be frustrating in that regard. They were in tight spaces in the midfield, and instead of making quick decisions, they were just a little bit too slow and hit it in behind their center backs and let Saka and Martinelli run. We just didn't do enough of that. And I thought if we had done more of that, we would have stretched the space a little bit more and would have more room to work through. But because we were so desperate to play small triangles right in front of the back line, we struggled, especially because we weren't all the way here, because when you're tired, this goes. Um, so yeah, I don't think their game plan was anything special in terms of shutting us down or anything like that. I just think they had a 4-2-3-1, we had a 4-3-3. They had 3 in the middle, we had 3 in the middle. There was nothing really intricate about what they were doing. It's just they were up for it and they had the legs and they were pressing us like mad. And because we didn't have the legs and we didn't have it up here, we couldn't figure it out. Because again, that first half was pretty freaking even. And so I mean, Bamford, he added something a little bit different. I do think that that was a smart move, but if we had played against Leeds the way that we played against Liverpool, well, we have not won, so I I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying that they don't deserve credit. What I'm saying is that we have played against pressing teams before, but we were smarter and we just didn't make those same mistakes that we were making. There were so many times where there was a time where Odegaard literally dribbled past one of their players, and instead of passing, he tried to go through another one. When does Odegaard do something like that? To me, that was up there for me. JJ Adams says, Jess, the PSV manager is Ruud van Nistelrooy. The different scenarios this game could have. Oh my God. I hate him. So yeah, that's not going to be nice. Ash says, Jesse Marsh masterclass, to be honest, on Sunday. If you guys think it was a masterclass, fair enough. I think they pressed us and we were stupid, to be honest. JJ Adams says, oh yeah, you said that already. Or I read that. Yo-Yo says, Leeds suffocated Arsenal. Surprised you're not giving your boy Marsh more credit for their second half. I mean, I am giving them credit. I think that they played well and they did a lot of pressing, but I also saw our players do things that if they had not been super tired, they probably wouldn't have done it. So like I kind of get what you guys are saying, but like they didn't do anything for me that I saw that was like, oh yeah, that was like perfect. Because we cut through them in the first half. And in the second half, yeah, they had Bamford, but they basically just put a striker out there that was decent. I don't know. I think had we had been less tired, I think we would have been fine. So yeah. Big White Clock says Leeds were just great, Jess. So if everybody that's saying Leeds were really great, are you gonna you're removing the context of we played those 4 really difficult or 3 really difficult games. We traveled, we played midweek, and literally you could see that our players were probably at 60, 70%. So again, I have it was it, it's not that I'm not trying to give them credit. I'm just saying I don't think that they did anything tactically like so brilliant that we couldn't have played better and played through it because we played through them in the first half. Do you know what I mean? Like I kind of get what you guys are saying, but yeah, no. Um uh, if you're saying that if basically what you guys are saying is that we looked bad because Leeds were so good versus we probably just weren't up to it 100%. If that's what you guys are saying, fair enough. But if you remove the context, then the whole conversation that we had about being tired and maybe not being 100% up to it, then all of that is gone. Because if you're saying that even at 100%, we wouldn't have been able to beat that tactically, I don't agree. So, like, we looked leggy, like, I don't know what to tell you. Denver says, we're tired. We looked leggy. We traveled to Norway and then back, then to Leeds. Wouldn't look into this a lot. 3 points and we move. So yeah, like I'm not saying that Leeds did not play well. I think that they played well, but technically, I think what their tactic was press them. They're tired. You know what I mean? Um, let's see. So, Ray Ray says, a bit of both, Jess. Yes, we were subpar, and Leeds also dominated. I know we're top, but it's still a worry. For me, if we play against Southampton like that, I think I'll be more worried, to be honest. I think you can clearly point to the the reason for the way that we played that way. Do you know what I mean? Like if we had no reason to be tired and we had no reason to look leggy and we just looked that way and we played shit, then I could kind of understand. But if we play well at home against PSV, we beat them, and then we go away from home to Southampton, we look fine, then all of this will be for nothing. So I kind of understand, but I want to see more games go past before I decide that we're in trouble. We are going to have games where we're not going to play at 100%, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's something to worry about because every team goes through this, and with it being like 10 wins out of 11, I think we can kind of say that, like, we're good, and we had a bad day. Um, unless it continues, which then we can have longer conversations of, have we been found out? Are we not that good when we're being pressed? This and that. And we're gonna play against a Southampton team that likes to press and are gonna be young, and they're gonna be at home. So if we struggle again, then I will say, like, yeah, we're in trouble. I Yule says, I think we missed Zinchenko. I agree. I think I underestimated how important Zinchenko is for our buildup and how we play, and especially the outlet to the left-hand side, making that left-hand side tick a little bit more. And I think the combination of Zinchenko, Martinelli, and Xhaka was so good in those initial games, and now we don't have it as much. That doesn't mean that those players have played poorly. They've been fine without him, but it also allows people not to just sit on top of Thomas Partey. And so there were a lot of bodies around Thomas Partey. We've seen that before. And last season, had that happened, we would have been effed. Like, we would have been so done. But when you have Zinchenko, and like what I noticed at the beginning of the season when Zinchenko was playing, Partey wasn't doing as much. Like, he still was playing, but he wasn't doing as much as what he's being tasked to do when Zinchenko is not there. So yeah, I think that having Zinchenko back will really help, because then they can't just stop Thomas Partey and really get around him. But I also think our team needs to not try to play through a team that's really pressing your midfield so hard. Like, I think we could have done with some long balls into the corner. I forget who we were playing against. I think it was Man United. And we hit one ball into the channel, and Jesus just ran Lisandro Martinez over, got us up the pitch, got a foul. I didn't see enough of that yesterday. I didn't see enough of that. I didn't see enough of, okay, we're being pressed or we can't play through. So let's hit it long and see what we can do. We have some of the most scary forwards in the league in terms of when they're running you down, you're worried. And so we just didn't do enough of that. And so, yeah, I think we could have tested them a little bit more in that way. Mr. Austin says Partey won't be available the whole season. Who would you fill in? Who would you fill in for him? We don't have any other options but Sambi. That's just what it is. I think Sambi is like the only option, really. I think there's some galaxy brain that we can do, and be like, oh yeah, well, let's put Zinchenko and Xhaka and Odegaard and see what happens. But I don't think that that really works. We haven't seen it. I think if that was an option, Arteta would try it. So I think it's just Sambi. But I'll tell you guys this. I wonder, because El Neni will be back sometime around January. Do you guys really think Arsenal are going to go out there and buy a midfielder? I'm not sure if they are. I think if we see anybody come in, it'll be an attacker. And maybe that's just I'm projecting because I feel like that's what we're going to need. But when I look at this team, I still see a lack of goals. And I know that might sound crazy because, like, we've scored so many goals this season. But if you take out the players that we have, where the goal is gonna come from, and we haven't had to play a game yet, really, without those 3 up front, Saka, Jesus, and Martinelli, and I just am looking at it like, I think we need somebody with some goals. I think we need somebody that if Jesus is out, they can pop into the middle. If Martinelli is out, maybe they can go wide. A versatile forward that has goals in them, something like that. I think coming up into the end of the season, the last thing you want is the goals to dry up. And I just looked at Jesus yesterday, and I was like, uh-uh. That's the last thing that we need, because we've been through that before. And I know that might sound harsh on Eddie, but because we haven't really seen him in the Premier League yet, I'm not sure that, that's really the answer. And so a versatile forward is probably, if I had to choose between that and a midfielder, knowing that El Neni is going to come back, that's probably what I'd choose, because I also feel like a versatile forward won't kill us in the summer, in terms of if we bring one in now, I don't think we'll be looking at it in the summer and being like, oh, we should have waited. But if we bring in a midfielder now, if we get Champions League, there'll probably be better options. And so would we prefer to have like a marquee midfield signing or a marquee winger signing? Because if it's me, I wanna get a big midfield signing in the summer, and if you bring one in January, you're not getting one in the summer, and so, yeah, I mean, I would love a winger to come in because I'm not sure that the goals are really there if those 3 are out. Yo-Yo says, "Oh, you guys are talking to each other." Um, the Mad Hatter says, "We need a winger." Zach 10 says, "Partey to Sambi is the biggest drop off in quality in the big 6 after Martinez to Maguire." Yeah, I mean, it is. It's just the reality of where we're at right now, but I'm looking at January and I'm like, so if we wanna bring in somebody that's gonna be able to back up Thomas Partey, because we don't need another 8 right now. I think we can all agree that right now we don't need another 8. So we have Xhaka, we have Odegaard, and we have Vieira, and then potentially Emile Smith Rowe when he's fit. So we don't need another 8. You would need somebody that can step in for Thomas Partey. You have Elneny potentially coming back in January, and you have Sambi there. And so who is gonna be available in January that's, you know, that we really are gonna want to be in that position? Who is that player gonna be, and should we not wait into the summer to bring in the marquee person that we really want? I don't know. I don't know. Like, I just look at it and I'm just like, "Should we wait? Should we wait? Should we not? Is it gonna cost us? Is it not?" What's gonna be the biggest problem? Is it gonna be not having Thomas Partey, or is it gonna be not being able to score goals when inevitably one of those front players are not gonna be able to play? And we don't have any other natural wingers. Marquinhos is not ready, so I think we know that. Nelson, n there's no. So those 2, you can already take them out of the equation. So really what we're talking about is putting Emile Smith Rowe and Vieira in wide positions, and they're not the same as Saka and Martinelli. They're just not the same. So that's what I think we need. Arnolito says, Partey needs to be more passive and just pass safe sometimes. He has a more attacking brain. It's funny because we're having this conversation in a group chat that I'm in about Partey and how his role is changing a little bit. And people were saying this at the beginning of the season. I didn't see it as much, but I see it more now that Partey needs to. We don't have anybody that dictates tempo the way that I feel like a possession based team needs. I think when it comes to Partey, he's like you said, he's always forward thinking, which is why I love him. That's in terms of the way that he plays. I like that he's always looking for the line breaking pass and can get us forward, and he can do more than just pass it sideways and backwards. But sometimes when we're playing in a difficult game where we don't have, the game is too much of a basketball match, we need somebody that can calm the game down. And neither Xhaka or Partey are doing that at the moment. I thought yesterday we could have used some players just calming the game down a little bit, passing, slowing it down, keeping, because every single time that we passed it forward and they won the ball from Odegaard or Jesus or whatever, they got a little bit of something from that. And if we had just passed it around a little bit more and waited our turn to actually attack them, then we probably would have been okay. And it would have taken some pressure off of us. So, and the midfielder, like I do think Partey needs to work on the tempo of the game and know how to control it a little bit more and not always want to go forward. But I think moving into that next era of Arsenal and who's going to eventually be the player that is the long-term player there, they need to be somebody that can do the Partey stuff and also kind of not necessarily is like always safe, but knows when to slow it down and when to speed it up. I don't know who that player is. Um Gargamel says, Zaha in January, forget CDM for now, allow Sambi to mature. Zach 10 says, basically, we need our Tiago. Exactly. That's what I think. Because Tiago will just slow things down and, you know, I think he dictates tempo better than Thomas Partey. I think they have a lot of the same attributes in terms of the passing range that they have and the types of passes that they can do, being quite press resistant. Those things are all the same. But when it comes down to like we need to slow the game down, Partey just wants to go a million miles an hour. And so, yeah, you do need to find your Tiago, but Tiagos don't come cheap, especially if you want to get them and you want to have them in your team for a while. And so I wonder what players are going to be available in the market for that. Yo-Yo says the club has never replaced Santi, the press-resistant release valve. I agree. Denver says, "Just get that pasta-sounding guy from Juventus." I'm like, I can't believe I ever said that, but Locatelli. I mean, that's exactly who you guys are talking about. I don't know enough about Locatelli to say he's that player or not. I think from what I have seen, he has a lot of those qualities, but, you know, I don't watch him enough. I don't watch him enough. Um, Yo-Yo says, if Busquets is a template, then Arsenal need an economical deep line playmaker. Haven't had one since Santi. Exactly. Um, let's see. Zach 10 says that midfielder should be Xhaka. I agree. He's not up to it. Yeah, it's just there's just nobody there. I mean, in most cases we do control possession, we control the game, but there's just times where it's just like put your foot on it. Put your foot on it, and we just don't have that right now. So, we'll see. I've never heard of Labatka. I've never heard of him before. You guys, sorry. I'll look him up though. You say he plays for Napoli then? It's 27, Slovak professional player. So what kind of player is he then? What is he? I guess I'll watch Napoli next time they play. I mean, I did watch them in the Champions League, but I wasn't paying that much attention to these guys. His pass completion is in the 99th percentile, and he passes the ball almost 70 times per 90 in the 91st percentile. So he's definitely somebody in the team that is heavily relied upon in terms of their possession and dictating their play. So I can kind of see what you guys are saying there. I want to see him a little bit more. But do you think we're in the market for somebody like this? He's most like João Moutinho. That's the only name that I recognize here. So yeah, potentially. The other player that I know a lot of people really like is Declan Rice, and he kind of has that same, where I wouldn't say he's press resistant like Partey, but he doesn't give the ball away. And his progressive carries are really, really good. So carrying the ball in the midfield, getting from one place to another. And then he's in the 93rd percentile for passes completed. So again, he doesn't give away the ball. And he can also become a third center back, which I think is important for Arsenal in hard games. Thomas Partey always goes into the back three, he always goes into the back two and becomes a third center back. And that's where he does a lot of his like defensive work. And so it's important to have somebody that has that competence as well. And so people like Declan Rice. I think he could play that role, but he doesn't have the same passing range as Thomas Partey. Saksham says Declan Rice is bad. Don't want him. He can't pass from a 6 as a single pivot. Ray says we need to turn the world upside down to get the next Santi sail the Middle Earth. Look if we're sail to the Middle Earth and look there if necessary. They just don't come that often, do they? For me, Bellingham is not that player. Even though I do feel like he fits that left 8 position, I don't think he's necessarily the player that you want sitting deep dictating play for you. It's a different role, in my opinion. Frankie, he definitely is that type of player. He can play deepest in midfield and dictate play from deep. He does do defensive work, but it's kind of like Partey where it's not that typical destroyer, but he just seems like he's destined for United at some point. And so I don't know if we'd be in for him unless we, had Champions League and they didn't. Which could happen. Tony says pick one, Rice or Bellingham. That's a hard one. I mean, because both they fit different, I think, different positions in the team that we potentially want to upgrade. I would say just off of just pure which one do I like more, I'd say Bellingham. Just in general. Let's see. Saksham says De Jong is bum in defense. I wouldn't say, well, he, let's say this though. Like, he's not Basuma type defensive central defensive midfielder. He's more of somebody that can sit in deep and control possession. He's the type of midfielder that a Barcelona would want. And I- Ten Hag was getting him to play that six role. So he can play there. He has played there before, but he's a different type of six. And so no, he's not gonna be the most defensively robust, like, he's just not gonna be that, but for somebody who wants to have a lot of possession, he's probably a really good 6, for your team. You just have to be able to surround him with strong defenders, but he's not, like, terrible. He can get in the right position and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I don't think his defensive awareness is so terrible because he has played center back for Barcelona as well. So I don't think he's as bad as people think. He's just not running in and slide tackling people, which is what people think defending is all the time. Not Focal says Bellingham or De Jong. I wanted De Jong this summer, but it's impossible without Champions League and challenging maybe in the future. In terms of what we need, I would say I would still probably prefer. I mean, I like De Jong more than Bellingham, and I like Bellingham more than Declan Rice. De Jong is just such a good player. So yeah, I would say De Jong probably. But yeah, both players you can't touch without Champions League and challenging, so this is tough. Let's see. Saksham says, I watch all Barca games. De Jong isn't what we need, but he can play 8 better for us. Fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, the game was pretty much like devastatingly bad at some points, but we got away with it and we scored the goal when we needed to. We punished them for their mistake, and then we got away with it because obviously Bamford, he misses the penalty. It is a penalty. The handball is what it is. Um, and then they got awarded one late on in the game and it was rescinded because Bamford fouled, and Bamford was doing a lot of things in the second half. Like he just was, like he was very influential in them pushing. So I respect that, but they didn't do what they needed to do. They didn't put the ball in the back of the net. And it is what it is. And so we move on from that, and hopefully we don't see more performances like we have against Bodo Glimt and Leeds. We play against PSV on Thursday, so we'll obviously do like a preview on Wednesday. But it's such an important game that I think we have to go strong in. We have to make sure that we win that game. We push them away so that we can kind of rest a little bit more and not have, that much stress going into those last couple of group stage games. And then we move on to Southampton, where I think, if you do well against PSV, you can rotate a little bit more. You can also rotate pretty heavily, I think, against Nottingham Forest at home. So I think PSV and Southampton are so, so important for us, to kind of reset and also set ourselves up for success. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. Are you guys excited? I can't wait to see how the team plays, and hopefully we get a game against PSV that I'll be happy to rewatch, because I did not rewatch the Leeds game. I couldn't. It made me sick, you guys. It made me sick. I was literally sitting there, stomach hurting, just all curled up in a ball, like I just wanted to be over. I just wanted to be over. Like it was so bad. Um Yo-Yo says I'd prefer a loss versus PSV over Southampton. Fair enough. I prefer us not lose at all. Do you think a loss is coming? Is that what you see, Yo-Yo? Alex says Bellingham would be insane. Maybe we could beat Liverpool to him, or we're not beating Real Madrid to him. So there you go. um, so Gargamel says, no way Bellingham or Rice fall within our budget. Realistically, more chances of Verratti type signing. I think that's why we'll look at like a Locatelli or something like that. That's, because we're cheap like that. iGamer says, they didn't deserve the pen anyway. Well, the last one they didn't deserve, but the one with the handball, they did deserve that one. Let's see. Sakshem says, to be honest, De Jong flopped in Barca. Don't act like he's Bellingham, chat. Um, I mean, you could also say that Odegaard flopped at Real Madrid, but he's doing fine. But you also think Odegaard is a bum. So, yeah, I think he made the wrong move going to Barcelona and it hasn't worked out for him. But if you think that guy's not freaking quality, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I just see a different player than maybe you do. Yo-Yo says, if people believe the recent performances are due to the pitch and fatigue, then yes. Okay, fair enough. Big White Clock says, you underestimate the draw of the Arsenal. Potentially. I'd love to have those players. I just don't think they're going to choose us over Real Madrid. So yeah. Let's see. Aha says there was an offside for the penalty they did get. Well, it was second phase. That's what they said. They said it was second phase, so it didn't count. But I get what you guys are saying. I get what you guys are saying. So yeah, but we got away with it. Let's see how we play against PSV and then Southampton, and then we'll reconvene. We'll reconvene and see if it's just a blip or if we're going through a difficult period. We'll see. But I've enjoyed having this longer chat with you guys. We went for an hour and a half today. It's tons of fun. I enjoy talking to you guys every single time. Saksham, iGamer, Crispy Rice, always here. Yo, Arnolito, Tony. Yeah, Lionide, you're always here as well. So many like regulars and then new people, Zach 10. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really does help the channel grow and stuff like that. I'll have another exciting announcement as well. Your girl's doing big things, so watch out for that. All right, you guys. Talk to you guys in the next one.